free cash. And that's not all, as you'll also win our most precious prize to date, a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Tonight, coming up on tonight's show.
Imagine good growth in every postcode and hope in every heart.
Yes, Britain's first vibes-driven Prime Minister-to-be has taken to the stage today and revealed his plans to save the country. So far, he's revealed a grand total of next to nothing and refused to be scrutinised by the media. But with little he has revealed, tonight we will reveal the true cost of Burnhamism. And in other news tonight,
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
and as the government announces plans to let in thousands more migrants via its new sponsorship scheme, it's now emerged the government has secretly dropped the ban on illegal migrants obtaining British citizenship, and also tonight.
Need a change in culture. Enough of anti-white prejudice.
As a damning new report published today reveals white working-class pupils, and especially boys, have been utterly failed by the state for decades. Tonight we'll be asking whether this has torn apart the establishment orthodoxy of white privilege. And finally tonight, for our finale, as a Muslim theme park day is today hosted, we'll debate whether this is conducive to a socially cohesive society or not. Now that's all to come, but first, here's your news headlines with Sophia Hill.
Martin, thank you. Very good evening. These are your top stories at 7 o'clock. Now, breaking tonight, resident doctors in England have voted to accept an offer from the government to improve pay and working conditions. The offer includes more training jobs, faster pay progression, and a plan to cover out-of-pocket expenses like exam fees. Patients have seen hundreds of thousands of appointments cancelled due to industrial action over the past few years. Now, this news brings their current strike action to an end, which Health Secretary James Money praised earlier.
This helps to move us forward from a cycle of ongoing strikes, which have been going on for far too long and have cost the country billions of pounds. The cost of the offer on the table is less than the cost of another week of strikes, so it's good value for money for taxpayers, as well as being good news for NHS staff and, crucially, for patients, because it means we can now work with resident doctors to build an NHS that is fit for the future.
Elsewhere, Andy Burnham has promised to give the UK a new direction and fix what he called a fragmented and disjointed Westminster.
I am going to give Britain the circuit breaker it needs.
In his first major speech since announcing he's running for Labour leadership, he set out plans for the biggest transfer of power out of Whitehall in modern times. So-called Number 10 North would devolve power to Manchester and give more money and control to other regions. The new Labour MP for Makerfield says that it's all part of a 10-year plan to raise living standards across the UK. But Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Daisy Cooper, wasn't so convinced by his speech.
Well, it was high on vibes and low on detail. And the reality is that Andy Burnham has a very small window within which to turn things around for the Labour Party and to turn things around for the country. We want to see meat on the bones as soon as possible.
Children's mental health services in England are in crisis, with more than 1 million young people affected in a single year. Around 1 in 10 children are either referred for, waiting for or receiving treatment, with demand almost doubling since 2018. The top reason for referrals is anxiety, and Children's Commissioner Dame Rachel de Souza says that intervention needs to happen far sooner. And Britain's Wimbledon hopes have suffered another major blow. That's as British #1 Cameron Norrie is out after losing to world number 144 Michael Zeng in the first round. Norrie, a former Wimbledon semi-finalist, had been struggling with a rib injury in the build-up to the tournament. Earlier today, Jack Draper also withdrew from the championship due to a returning arm injury. And that follows 24-year-old Emma Raducanu pulling out also due to injury. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in an hour, but now it's back to Martin.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Thank you, Sophia. Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorby. And indeed, welcome to Britain's first ever vibes-driven Prime Minister.
Imagine good growth in every postcode and hope in every heart.
Yesterday, Andy Burnham took to the stage in Manchester to unveil what Burnhamism really means for the country. And if you're feeling confused, well, join the club. You should be. Never before has someone come so far in politics having committed to so little. In this case, all that's really been committed to is the notion that Westminster is the bogeyman.
After 10 years of political turbulence since Brexit, and 20 years of falling living standards since the 2008 financial crash, Westminster hasn't been working for people, and it hasn't been working for a very long time. In fact, it is broken.
So an early pop at Brexit there, and Westminster is broken. But what's the solution?
Number 10 North will support the regions on 3 clear tasks: reform of essential utilities, reindustrialisation and the regeneration of places.
Yes, a parliament neutered by decades of Liberal legislation that incessantly devolves decision-making to quangos, bureaucrats and judges can only be remedied by devolving what little power is left to the regions. Now, the notion appears to be the central tenet of Burnhamism. But beyond that, what do we have?
So, working with local areas, Number 10 North will oversee the biggest council house building programme since the post-war period.
Well, the biggest council house building programme since the war. That's 1 million houses we've got to find the money for, but what else?
We will bring higher density residential development to our towns, and Number 10 North will be able to support all places to turn around those towns, their high streets and the local centres, increasing footfall on the high street and protecting more green spaces from development. To reinforce that, we will reform business rates to support pubs and high street businesses, businesses that bring social benefits to communities.
So that's some business rate reforms, but what else?
On utilities, we will ensure all parts of the UK are able to take greater public control of essential services like water, housing, energy and transport.
Well, it sounds like there's a few more billion we need there. That's a very, very big hint at nationalisation of utilities. Well, we don't have lots to work with here, but one thing is clear. Council housing, business rates cuts and renationalisation will cost an absolute fortune. And newsflash to Mr Burnham, Britain is broke. £3 trillion, actually, is the cost of our national debt. But that can only mean one thing, then. More taxes are coming your way. Well, to analyse the first day of Burnhamism, I'm joined now by the founder of Blue Labour, Lord Maurice Glassman, as well as the former Director of Communications at Reform UK, Gawain Towler, and GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Maurice, may I start with you? You were, let's be frank, you were desperate to see the back of Sir Keir Starmer. Now you've got your man. Can he deliver on any of these promises, or is it just yet more empty, uncosted rhetoric?
Well, first of all, you've always got to welcome a politics that understands when someone can't do their job. It's a sign of life. I think the Labour Party has acted, which impressed me in removing Keir Starmer. And I think you're being a little bit glib and snide about Andy Burnham. I remember him, I first met him. He was one of the three Blairite horsemen, the young princes. There was James Purnell, there was David Miliband, and there was Andy Burnham when I walked in. And the first thing he's done is he's appointed James Purnell as Chief of Staff. Now, he is an extremely competent strategic thinker. He's not, and he is technologically literate. So what I'm looking at, James and I disagree on a huge number of things, but what I'm saying is he's an effective, very effective strategic operator. Now, he's going to be aware of AI and what AI can do in terms of state reform. That's one area that's not mentioned here at all, but I'll just flag it up and keep your eye on that. The second is the disconnect. The Labour's got this strategic disconnect. It's a bit like the Church of England. Church of England, 72% of churchgoers voted Brexit, 6% of the clergy. Yeah. Right? Labour's got that. Now, Andy's just spent 6 weeks in Makerfield. Notice the way he's speaking. It's a very different language to Starmer. Now, when it comes to things like water, electricity, these are common goods. I'm a Labour man. These should never, ever have been privatised. Now, housing is a huge issue. And we'll see how he works it out there in terms of the private-public partnership. But what I'm saying to you, Martin, is that the party has shown some tendency towards life, clinging towards life. Notice he didn't rehearse anything about Remain here. He's not. So I think he's not the first Prime Minister elected on vibes. I think Blair was enormously vibesy. Yeah, but the difference then is that the country was well off. Country now is broke. The biscuit tin is empty, and I want to specifically push you on something which Mr. Burnham is going to have to answer sooner or later. Today, he wouldn't take any questions. You can't keep dodging the media forever. How much is this going to cost, and where is the money coming from? If you want to build more houses than after World War II, that's over 1 million houses. Social housing, which is low return, low yield, slow return. That's a huge public purse expenditure, and business rate cuts, nationalisation. You can say it should never have happened, that they were taken into private ownership, but that did happen. Yeah. And to get it back will cost untold billions. How on earth is all of this going to be paid for? Well, that's the point. So first of all, this is where I think it's really vital, is that there's also the thing he didn't mention, which is absolutely top of the list, which is the renewal of our armed forces. That is absolutely fundamental. I think that there can be genuine cross-party agreement about that, is that there needs to be at the highest priority the security of our borders and the effectiveness of our armed forces.
But he didn't even mention immigration once in his speech today. He mentioned the word inclusive about 4 times. He never once mentioned immigration. He never once mentioned giving power away to Brussels, which he's hinted at before. He has to get a grip on immigration. In Manchester, to a home crowd, surrounded by activists, it's one thing. But when reality bites, there's a huge problem he's got to solve.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is that he seems to be committed to state reform. Now, that state reform has got to be drastic job losses in state employment due to the utilisation of AI. This can open up enormous space. Now, where does that go? I think it's completely correct to say that the first priority is to building up our armed forces, restoring the integrity of the police, securing our borders, stop the boats, all those. That's vital. But it's also vital in there that we recognise that there has to be an industrial strategy. That involves cheap, abundant energy. Another one that, that's absolutely fundamental. So, all the strategic choices...
I wonder what Ed Miliband might say about that.
Yeah, well, let's see where Ed Miliband lands up in all this.
OK, Lord Glassman, let's move on, get my panel in, if I could. Gawain Tower gets you. Reform UK boss Nigel Farage responded swiftly today. He said the problem with this 10-year plan is we don't have 10 years to save the country.
Yes, and it also requires 2 elections. Can we have one, please? For example. But you talk about James Purnell and Burnham as 2 horses of the apocalypse.
No, 2 princes of the Blair.
From what I've been hearing, the 3rd rider will be joining as well.
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm saying, watch Ed. It could be that David has the last laugh in that particular
precisely. But Morris is absolutely right. And the things that were not said are the things that are most important. There's a great wish list of stuff that costs, but the stuff that's not been said that also costs is you can't have reindustrialisation without cheap power. You can't have your abundant, cheap, reliable power. You cannot have that AI revolution that might cut costs in the civil service without abundant, cheap power. And if he's going to swinging cuts to the civil service in order to use AI to make the civil service and the state more efficient, he's got to deal with the unison. He's got to deal with the trade unions that pay his wages, or the party's wages. There's a whole bunch of unsaid here that is... And because he's getting it without a general election, because he's getting out without even a leadership election, none of this is going to be tested in combat, political combat. None of it. And in a general election, much of the weakness in this statement today would be pulled apart by the media and so on and so forth. And that's just not happening.
Nigel.
Hold your horses, guys. I mean, this is his first speech, and inevitably it's going to be broad brushstroke stuff. And you're absolutely right. I'd like to know about how the Council House building is going to be paid for. Will he use the 39 billion envelope that Keir Starmer set aside for 1.5 million homes during this Parliament, or does he need more money? I'd like to know how the business rates work, how they go back to regional mayors. So and also when it comes down to more public control of energy and water, nationalisation is ludicrously expensive. It's fine with rail because the franchises run out, not so with electricity and water, so how is it paid for? So, yeah, but give him a chance. He's got 3 weeks now before he becomes Prime Minister. There'll be a load more speeches along the way, and some of these things will get fleshed out.
Lord Glassman, final word to you, if I can. We keep hearing about Westminster as broken, but why is a bigger public service, a bigger public sector, more bureaucrats in more towns the solution?
No, it's clearly not. What I'm trying to pick up on here is that I don't want to live my life in an endless despair and desperation. We've got to look at what he's saying is there's a huge sense of powerlessness among people. That's one of the things. The really important thing with this definition of Burnhamism is that he does talk about place. Now, place has been battered and beaten to the ground over 50 years. Neither the state nor capitalism like place. They like free movement of things through space. The fact that he's putting something on there, and that means that people have got to take responsibility as well in the places that they live. Now, if this is not just another administrative budgetary devolution where basically the state kicks the can down the road and local authorities that can't afford it have to fulfil it, then this could lead to a renewal of democracy.
OK. We're going to leave it there. Thank you very much, Lord Maurice Grassman, Gawain Towler, and, of course, Nigel Nelson. Thank you to you all. Now, coming up in just a moment's time.
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
Yes, as the government announces plans to let in more thousands of migrants via its new sponsorship scheme, it's now emerged the government has secretly dropped the ban on illegal migrants obtaining British citizenship. That's next.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
Oh, thank you. And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorby. Now, with a total of more than 200,000 immigrants illegally crossing the Channel since the crisis began back in 2018, the Labour Party has now come to a brand new solution. Let's let in even more. Yes, that's right, because last week the government announced its new migrant sponsorship scheme whereby thousands more migrants are now set to come to the United Kingdom in a new so-called safe and legal route. But the plot thickens. It now turns out that Labour has secretly dropped the ban on small boat migrants and other illegals obtaining British citizenship in its new legislation. So, in other words, the solution to the migrant crisis is to let more migrants in and indeed give them more citizenship. Astonishing. I'm delighted now to be joined by the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, how many times have I said to you the lunatics have taken over the asylum system? And here we go again.
It is exactly as you described there. We are now being run by madmen who seem heck-bent on devaluing British citizenship. I mean, if you want to talk about the mother of all pull factors, I would suggest that awarding or allowing individuals that break into our country to obtain British citizenship is pretty high up the list. Of course, this was something that the Tories did try and clamp down on whilst in government. They introduced good character requirements that effectively said, you know, if the first thing you do whilst in our country is break our laws, fall foul of our laws, then you're not really going to be eligible for British citizenship. The Labour government saw a lot of challenges, legal challenges by human rights groups and so forth on these measures, and have eventually caved in and secretly amended the guidance that effectively now does mean that individuals who have come into our country from far-flung, culturally distant nations, broken in, imposed huge costs on the taxpayer, are now going to be given a legal status that makes them as British on paper as you or I. I think it's a really offensive state of affairs and something that actually is only going to increase the incentives for individuals to make these crossings. Because, of course, these individuals, once they get given asylum, they have a very, very easy pathway towards a very comfortable life. They don't have to pay any application fees for indefinite leave to remain. As soon as they get their asylum application rubber stamped, they are entitled to welfare. Over 2/3 of asylum seekers are claiming universal credit of those that have received refugee status. So the long-term costs of such measures as these are baking in huge fiscal problems, and that's before we even start talking about the huge social and cultural costs that come along with it as well.
Rob Bates, fret ye not, because Shabana Mahmood has a cunning plan. It's the People's Courts. So members of the public will be trained up to make sensitive asylum decisions, putting the judiciary to one side. Now, I know, Rob Bates, in the past you've complained about the judges being woke, but can you seriously imagine that a panel hired by the government will share the views, perhaps, of GB News viewers? Or do you feel it could be about as balanced as the BBC Question Time audience?
Quite. It'll be care for Calais individuals are dusting off their CVs right about now and getting those applications in. And of course, actually, all these measures that we are seeing announced by the Home Office, we need to take in consideration how many individuals are actually going to be removed. And the Home Office has made it very clear today that they plan to remove over the next decade only 45,000 more individuals. That's 4,500 individuals extra a year. That's nowhere near meeting the scale of the problem that we are facing. That would barely touch the sides. It would not keep pace with the individuals coming across the channel, visa overstayers, foreign national offenders. And I think, unfortunately, there is a stasis within Whitehall when it comes to actually the deportations process. We're stuck in a rut here. We've bound ourselves up with so much human rights nonsense, the Refugee Convention also being a factor, that we just simply are now throwing our hands up in the air and saying we're not going to remove these individuals. Because, of course, as you and I discussed before, Martin, even if an individual's appeal fails and this panel does reject an individual's appeal, that doesn't necessarily mean they leave the country, because they can make claims of refoulement that sending them back to their own country would somehow put them at risk, and therefore they do stay indefinitely as well. There is a complete need now for the asylum system to be frozen. It's not working and the country is full.
OK, thank you very much indeed, as ever. Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Thank you very much indeed. To my panel now. That's, of course, Gawain Towler, the former Comms Director of Reform UK, and GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, I shall come to you first. The problem I think this government has is treading this tightrope of trying to keep the Labour left on side. So today we've seen safe and legal routes, because that's something that the left have always demanded, at the same time as trying to act like they're being tough. The problem is, never the twain shall meet. This is chaos.
Well, why is it chaos? It seems to me that it depends which bit you want to start with. If we're talking about the idea of citizenship, that is quite a long way off. Shabana Mahmood tomorrow will actually extend the 5-year term for indefinite leave to remain to 10 years. You then have a year after that to go and get your citizenship, provided you pass the Life in the UK test, you speak English, and you're of good character. If you've got somebody who's been to this country that long and is working, then citizenship should indeed be the route. It always has been in the past. There's no reason why it shouldn't be in the future.
But they're saying today, if you come here illegally on a dinghy, you're allowed to apply for citizenship. That's preposterous.
Well, no, because
it should never be a reward.
40% of people who come on dinghies get deported anyway. So of those who get asylum, yes, they do.
Where's that number from?
That comes from the House of Commons Library.
I've never ever heard that in my life.
Well, that is the House of Commons Library figures, which I always find more trustworthy than any official figures. 40% of
dinghies have been deported. I think that's a fancy.
No, it's not. 40% of those who claim asylum, 40%.
Hold on, of those who fail the asylum claim?
Yes, of course.
Not of those who claim asylum, because over 70% of those who claim asylum get it.
Yes, that's right.
So of the 30%, so we've got 100% who are legal, 70 get the asylum so they can do it, and then 40% of the...
40% have refused asylum.
So of the 30%, 40%, so about 15%.
40% are refused asylum.
No, they're not.
So they are. Well, OK. Well, I mean, we can argue about the figures, but I've given you the source of them. Look it up. So on the basis of that, there's no reason why people shouldn't have citizenship. If you're objecting to the idea of these safe and legal routes, which may well
we've got safe and illegal routes.
Well,
we've got endless routes into the country. We've got the soft underbelly through Ireland. We've got endless dinghies. We've got the backs of lorries. We've had the Ukraine scheme, the Hong Kong scheme, the Afghan scheme. We have enough routes in the country.
Well, certainly no one objects to the Ukraine scheme, which is a settlement scheme. The Hong Kongers seem to have settled here really well. That was a settlement scheme. So did the 20,000 Syrians who came here back in 2016. And the Ugandan Asians, also a settlement scheme.
But we've done our bit. That's the point. Gawain Towler.
It's more and more and more and more. And I'm going back to this. So 40%, I'll accept your figure, although I doubt it, 40% are rejected in their asylum. What proportion of that are you saying are then deported? I thought you said 40%.
No, 40% are rejected. Out of the people who come here illegally...
Yeah, 40% are rejected.
40% are rejected.
And what proportion of that are deported?
I don't know.
Not enough, clearly. I do not believe...
That was up 7% on last year. So they are being sent home.
A single person who comes here illegally should ever get citizenship. This drives a cart and horses through any defence against that. There is no reason, no need, and no benefit to this country. Absolutely not. I think we've got to start looking at this from a question of how do we, this country, benefit? That's it. We do not owe the world a living. We do not owe people a living. We owe our country a living. We owe our people a living.
We're talking about people who will then be here legally because they've been granted asylum. So on the basis of that...
If they've arrived illegally, that is a bad character mark. They shouldn't get it.
Well, I mean, then we come down to how this all started.
And of course, we now have the safe and legal routes, yes, that we were talking about.
Because of court cases about not granting citizenship on the basis of the Refugee Convention.
Which we should leave.
Well, you may indeed think that, but at the moment, under British law, nothing to do with anything else, under British law, 1993 Immigration Act...
and Gawain, there's another story today. A record 20,000 foreign criminals who've been released from prison who were earmarked for deportation aren't being deported. They seem to have been released early and they're wandering around streets, and 40% of them have dodged deportation. You've guessed it, using the ECHR. Nigel, the ECHR...
Which has been clamped down on. Which is being clamped down on.
So 40% of people who should be deported by the government's own reckoning are using the ECHR to avoid deportation.
That's right, they're using Article 8.
This legislation no longer works for the British public, it works for foreign criminals. And that includes rapists, sex offenders, robbers, fraudsters, arsonists and domestic abusers.
Which is why Shabana Mahmood is changing it. So you mentioned the idea of having sort of people's courts to go and decide these things rather than immigration judges. Those were the people who were dealing with these ECHR rules before. It's no different from the jury system or the magistrate system. So that to me is fine.
I'm sorry, the sorts of people that having been trained in how they should... It's just going to be just as bad as we've got it already. The sort of people who are going to apply are going to be allowed to apply, because I'm sure if you've had one thing on your social media that doesn't suggest you love mass migration, you won't be allowed into that. You won't. Well, you know how it works.
You're making assumptions that we don't know. And on the basis of the way they select magistrates, I don't think that is true.
One last thing that ties into this, and that is, if we accept this new safe passage, and then we have the vagrancy law change, we can't even clear them up when they're on the streets.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. A Home Office spokesman said of the citizenship changes, this government is introducing the toughest standards anywhere in Europe for gaining settled status and applying for citizenship. And this would include a 30-year wait for those who arrive via small boat and 20 years for others who claim asylum. Citizenship in the UK is a privilege to be earned, not a right, and will be granted only to those who meet strict requirements. So there we go. No problem. We're coming up in a moment's time.
We need a change in culture. Enough of anti-white prejudice.
Subject close to my heart here today. A bombshell new report reveals that white working-class pupils, and particularly boys, have been completely and utterly systemically failed by the state. And tonight we'll be asking whether this has torn apart the establishment orthodoxy of white privilege. And that's next.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain will move into parts of the north and west through tonight. Cloudy and breezy night to come for most of us, particularly for western areas, and it will be feeling warmer by tomorrow morning, but quite a bit wetter for some of us as low pressures approaching from the Atlantic, introducing a weather front. Spells of wet weather are likely across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland in particular. It's particularly more southwestern areas of Scotland and the central belt that will see the heaviest rain overnight tonight. Elsewhere, outbreaks of rain are likely. I think most of us are going to see at least some rain overnight, but very little across more southern areas. It's quite light rainfall. But with lots of cloud around, it is going to be a mild start to the day. Temperatures at least 15 degrees or higher by the morning. Plenty of cloud around across more northern areas. Some quite brisk southwesterly winds across more western areas of the southwest coast of Scotland. Lots of cloud around, heavy bursts of rain are expected as well. As I said, it's parts of the central belt where we're likely to see the heaviest rainfall through the day. Across more southern areas of the UK, it should be a relatively dry and bright start to the day. Not too much in the way of sunshine away from the very far southeast, but it is going to be a pretty bright day across more eastern areas. I don't think we'll see too much rain across the east. Elsewhere, a risk of showers, some of these heavy and thundery, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, as well as some areas of northern England. Some very heavy showers, perhaps across parts of North Wales too. Quite widely temperatures in the low 20s, 25 degrees, possible in the best of the sunshine across the south and east. Wednesday brings with it more cloud across the north and west, but another dry and bright day across more eastern areas, particularly through the morning. Risk of showers into the afternoon, but we're not expecting any thundery downpours through Wednesday. That rain then clears by Thursday to bring many of us a very sunny end to the week, with temperatures climbing once again to the higher 20s, with 30 degrees possible on the weekend. Bye-bye.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good. Neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. So, does the British establishment have a problem with the white working class? Well, today, a hard-hitting, a damning report says that England's education system simply isn't working for white working class kids, and particularly for boys, and that a once-in-a-generation reform is needed. Well, amongst the findings, perhaps most crucially of all, it found that white working class students were about half as likely as their less disadvantaged peers to get GCSEs in maths and English. So does this blow apart the establishment orthodoxy of white privilege? I'm delighted to be joined now by my panel, former Director of Comms at Reform UK, Gawain Towler, and of course GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Gawain Towler, I shall start with you. A minimum of 25 years straight this has been going on. White working class kids have been abandoned, they've been dumped, they voted Brexit, they wanted change, they were never listened to, and their reward is to be abandoned and then, for complaining, to be called racist.
Well, and there was that Netflix series last year, wasn't there, about how ghastly white working class boys were at school. And things like this, they have been demonised for an awfully long time. Them, their culture, who they are. But I wouldn't say that it's just the education system. These, if you look at the data, these problems arrive as they arrive at school, at primary school. Some of this is pre-existing. There is a serious issue there. There is a contempt for attainment. And if you look at those countries where there is a greater performance, be it the PISA scores and all the rest of it, one of the key things isn't the amount of money spent in schools. It is the absolute drive to get the very best teachers. If you look at Japan, look at Finland, it's not the different systems. It's the fact that they really go for top quality graduates, top quality teachers, and that makes a difference. If you think, what was the lessons that you enjoyed most? What were you good at? The one where there was a good teacher. And particularly for boys, the complete wipeout of men in primary schools, teaching, and now increasingly across the secondary school sector, fewer and fewer male role models in the teaching sector. And that is having a significant deleterious effect on those things. So yes, you've got the broader point. And yes, it does destroy the concept of white privilege for the vast majority of white people in this country. But I think there are other things as well.
Nigel Nelson, I just want to read out a list of data. This is the percent of pupils achieving grade 5+ in GCSE by demographic. Chinese, 75%. Bangladeshi, half. Indians, half. Black Africans, 43%. Pakistanis, 37%. Black Caribbean pupils, 23.2%, way down at the bottom. White British pupils, 18.6%. They're failing, and they're not being helped. And this is the point. I got involved in this years ago. I was in Parliament trying to get anybody to listen, and particularly those from the Labour left. Like today, Andy Burnham's making a huge dance about the working class of Britain. They didn't want to know because they've been brainwashed with this notion we can't help white kids because they were born privileged. It's dangerous, it's damaging them, and it's a cancer, and it has to stop.
I think you have to look at it slightly differently, that white kids from poor backgrounds are arriving at school not ready to learn, and then they never catch up. And what I get from, I mean, this is anecdotally, but what I get from friends who are teachers is that doesn't happen with Asian children from Chinese backgrounds, from Nigerian backgrounds.
You're saying it's the family's problem?
Well, what it does show is what you actually need more than anything is family support. And that's what these kids need. So it's not the state, it's not some kind of ideology that's ground them down.
So where is that support? Because I'll tell you where. Nowhere. There's not a single outreach project anywhere in the entire nation for white kids. And the problem is this. If it was introduced, everybody would be saying it's racist. There's white privilege. That's the problem. There's a mindset that gets in the way of actually addressing real need. Look at the data. Be colourblind.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is looking at the families and trying to help the family and getting
the... You never say that about black people. You'd never say it was the black
parents. I just did. I just made the...
You'd never say that.
I just made the point that in other ethnic backgrounds, kids are doing better. Now, you just read out the list, and it actually shows it from that. So there's got to be something there. They're all going to the same school. It's unlikely they're being treated differently. Something is going particularly wrong with white kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. And the point I'm making is, let's look at the family.
Perhaps they're being taught in schools, I don't know, that white people are racist and evil and pointless. It makes them give up.
But that's not going to make them not pass their GCSEs, is it?
Yes, it might.
It's actually, if you're taught that you're rubbish, and how many times we've been told, white workers, rubbish.
But are you seriously
seriously
suggesting a teacher in class is picking out white children?
It doesn't help.
And
the lack of male role models is a significant problem. But I mean, it's interesting. Bridget Phillipson did an interview about her youth, her poverty-stricken background, in which she talked about both her mother and her grandfather sitting there reading to her and all the rest of it, and looking and helping her at school and things of this sort. And yet it's all the school's fault. So I don't think it is. I do think we do have to drill down into what about white working class culture particularly means that achievement and attainment isn't something you don't want.
Well, maybe all the white working class jobs went because we sold our industry to the world. Maybe we just imported so much cheap immigration that unskilled jobs were just taken by people from overseas. Maybe we completely abandoned the working classes and threw them on the funeral pyre of what our country has become. Maybe that's the point. And maybe rather than blaming the families and
it's not so much blaming, it's encouraging. We need to encourage them to re-engage.
It's not blaming the families, it's actually trying to help the families.
And I think you're right
about children.
You're right about the destruction of the working class ideal. That's gone, and the unions aren't interested. Okay. Maybe should have been.
Gentlemen, well, there's a huge challenge ahead. Let's see if Andy Burnham is going to make good on that promise to help the working classes, because they are desperately being left behind. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you to Gawain. Now, for tonight's finale, as a Muslim theme park day is hosted today, we'll debate whether this is conducive to a wider, cohesive society or not. That's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The very hot weather in Western Europe is moving into the east and towards the Mediterranean, towards Italy as well as Greece through this next few days. Reasonably warm across the Canary Islands, 32 degrees for Tenerife on Tuesday. Temperatures closer to the lower 30s across Portugal, Spain and France. But for Italy and Greece, the high 30s approaching 40 degrees through the next few days, which brings with it a risk of thundery downpours. And that risk continues well into next week. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News.
Britain's news channel.
As we know, in a democracy, you're free to choose how you want to celebrate. And this is right on brand for Donald Trump. He loves to be a big spectacle with any celebration he does. He wants it to be big. He wants it to grab headlines. And clearly right now he wants to show strength. So it's a tactical decision as well. As we know, there's a very unpopular war going on with Iran, and he's hoping to announce a deal tonight, which would be the greatest birthday gift he could get, because we do need a deal. But it's only Donald Trump who would choose to do this. A lot of the people who follow UFC voted for him, and he's being tactical ahead of midterm elections, trying to show strength.
GB News, the People's Channel. Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
5 years ago from today, I got to meet my absolute hero, Nigel Farage, and rub shoulders with Dan Wootton and Andrew Neil, the latter being particularly grumpy. He was less than impressed as well when the sound failed during his first broadcast. The lighting was dreadful. I looked mouldy, and at one point I was practically invisible during a breakfast show because of a black backdrop behind me. I was little more than eyes and teeth. We faced obstacle after obstacle, including Stop Funding Hate, an activist group that set about trying to destroy us before we'd even broadcast a single second. Advertisers were frightened off, and hostility towards the channel was actively encouraged, which was deeply ironic. But still, we persisted. If anything, it made us more creative and more resilient.
GB News, the People's Channel. Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Ian McKellen is helping relaunch the Yard Theatre up in Hackney, which reopens this summer, with a new purpose-built 200-capacity auditorium. Tiny, but he'll be doing a brand new version of King Lear. Up in Scotland, Alan Cumming has taken over the Pitlochry Festival. And I just want people to know that all these small theatres, number one, it's not such a big risk. Ticket prices are £30, £35, £40, top price. And you can find less than that. So you can take a risk, but you'll go along and you'll experience something. You'll be part of something. And I am a huge fan of what we get in the West End. It's world class, but it is a lot of money. And it's sometimes just a little bit predictable or complacent or safe, I would say. Not always, but sometimes.
GB News, the People's Channel.
And welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, Martin Dudley. Now, here's tonight's finale, something you may not have expected to see. And welcome to the Muslim theme park experience, yes, hosted today by a private organisation at Gulliver's Land in Milton Keynes. A, quote, special Muslim family event offering an evening of rides, of shopping, food and community. And that was held today, and it included a selection, of course, of halal food vendors and unlimited rides. Now, I should say that this wasn't an event organised by Gulliver's Land in Milton Keynes. It was actually a private organisation renting out the theme park for the day to then sell tickets to the public. And there is no suggestion of exclusion of other religions. Such events do beg the question, however, whether this is conducive to a cohesive and an integrated society. Well, I'm joined now by my guest. That's the Imam and broadcaster, Ajmal Masroor. Ajmal, it's always a pleasure to have your company. An event where Muslim people are the primary purchaser of tickets advertised to them. Is this really inclusive?
Yes, because I've seen it happen for the Jewish communities, the Christian communities, Hindu communities on the same site. I've got posters and leaflets to show them to you, not only on the same site. Do you know that Alton Towers and other sites which have private hire also allow faith groups and non-faith groups to exclusively hire the entire space privately for themselves and their members, or the public if they want to. So I don't think it's anything to do with being exclusive. I think it's a great way of entertaining our kids who would otherwise be bored, or celebrating the fact that they've finished their GCSEs and A-levels, and parents want to take them somewhere where they can have fun. Why not? If a place is going to serve halal food, parents don't have to worry about it. If a place is going to serve kosher food, parents don't have to worry about it. If a place is going to serve vegetarian food, so people don't have to worry about it. So under such circumstances, I think It's a great sign of how we are inclusive, how we accept one another, and how we celebrate so many differences that we have that makes all of us so uniquely British.
But if we want to be truly inclusive, Ajmal, surely the best thing to do is have a multi-faith theme park experience. Let's all get together as our Muslim and Jewish and Christian and, I don't know, Jedi, worshippers, all get together and be inclusive on one day rather than selling tickets for one religious group alone.
I agree. 360 days of the year is probably saved for all of that. Only 5 days private hire. These companies out there are looking to make money. We can't really be telling them how to make money as long as they're following the law of the land. So if the land is available, if the place is available for hire, anybody is welcome. The issue here, Martin, is that why pick on the Muslim community suddenly? Why haven't you done the same program about the same space being hired by the Jewish communities, by the Hindu communities? You haven't done that. Maybe there's something about Muslim community that bothers everybody. Well, I want to tell you something very simple.
Because the events today, Ajmal, the events today came on the news calendar, and so we're covering it.
I understand, but there have been events like this throughout the year by other faith communities. What I'm saying to you is that we welcome people who want to hire a space. Even your studio, if somebody wanted to hire it for an exclusive program, I'm pretty certain your studio would say, yeah, as long as you pay for it. What we are saying is there is no law broken. Nobody is saying nobody else is allowed. Everybody's welcome. We're all celebrating, and celebration is fantastic. And it's what makes us amazing. Sun is out, weather is good, kids are off their school. Why not have a great time? I'm having a great time. All of us should have a great time, and we should smile about different communities doing it their own way.
OK, magnificent. Thanks for joining us. I always appreciate your company. And that's Ajmal Masroor. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the show, sir. Now, my panel, Gawain Towler, Nigel Nelson, and as ever, hoping interview like a vision. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, State of the Nation, is up next. Gentlemen, let's come to you. Nigel Nelson, let's come to you first. I mean, why do we need any events that are separatised? We're meant to be one big melting pot.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that if a group wants to take over an event, and this was backed up by the Milton Keynes Community Hub, and they support all sorts of events that are going on there, so I can't see a problem with that. Would you object if this was a Methodist rather than a Muslim theme park evening?
What, do they have only events?
Well, they may well do, but why not? If Methodists want to get together in a theme park, absolutely. Or as we just heard from Ajmal, that it could be Jews, it could be Church of England, it could be anything. There's no problem. And also, anybody from any faith or background was welcome to come to that event today if they wanted to go.
Do you think, for example, then, a Hasidic Jew might go along to this Muslim event and go, yeah, do you know what, I feel really welcome here, really inclusive. I mean, come on.
I don't know. If I'd known it was going on, I'd have been quite happy to pop in. So, other people may well have gone today. We don't know.
Gawain Towler.
I have to say, I'm sorry about this, but I don't see a problem. It's a commercial operation. Anybody can do the same. I cannot see the problem. I probably wouldn't go because I'm not that keen on halal food. But other than that, it is a private thing. If it was an enforced thing, but it's a private business doing a private deal with a private organisation, that surely is what we are.
So Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't understand what you're worried about. This is if the Conservatives anyone can hire a place and ask their community along. And you do it for the Conservatives, you do it for the Labour Party, you do it for the Catholics. We're very exclusive, the Catholics, and today is the feast of St. Peter and St. Paul. So come along and celebrate St. Peter and St. Paul and do it at a theme park. It's all great. I don't see this as a problem at all. It's not enforced by the state. We believe in freedom of association, and free associations are allowed to hire places.
OK, well, thank you very much. I got
Sorry
to stay
about that.
OK, there we go. A Gulliver's Land and Mubarak Moment spokesman, it's always going to be a man, of course, said this. This is a private hire event paid for by a private organisation and taking place at Gulliver's Land at a time when the resorts would otherwise be closed. We provide a venue for multiple private hire events throughout the year, welcoming a wide range of charities and faith groups, community organisations and corporate bookings, all with the aim of simply offering a place for people to come together, have fun and enjoy themselves. Now, coming up next, of course, is State of the Nation. So, Jacob Rees-Mogg, what's on your menu?
All this Burnham talk about devolution. What I really want to discuss is this idea that you have devolution for Wales and devolution for Scotland and devolution as Northern Ireland as countries. But England, you've got to chop up into little bits. You've got to create fake regions. You've got to create fake city areas that include rural areas that don't want to be linked to big cities. But there's England. Our country is England as part of the United Kingdom, not the southwest region or the west of England combined authority of any of this nonsense. And if any question is answered by having more politicians, I've yet to hear what that question is. So we had a vacuous speech from Burnham. His only big idea is devolution, but devolution is fundamentally anti-English, and I think that's a real problem with it.
Apart from that, you love the idea. Jacob Rees-Mogg, superb. Ears up next. Gawain, superb. Nigel Nelson, thank you very much indeed. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, ears up next. Stick around for that. I'll see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. Until then, keep it woke like this lot.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain will move into parts of the north and west through